What is up, fast boys and girls? I'm Limcube and this is the third chapter of my guide for the 80% speedrun of Breath of the Wild. Now in this video I will cover the complete first segment of the speedrun, starting in the Shrine of Resurrection all the way to the Stasis Shrine until we get our very first Spirit Orb. Make sure though to have watched my first videos. Those teach you all basics and you will need those basics to complete the segment. From now on they will be mandatory. Before we start with the run, a couple infos here. I'm covering this tutorial on the fastest way of playing 80% being French text and voice acting played on the Nintendo Switch. Timing in this speedrun starts when you gain control of Link. To help with that, I put my life split, which is the name of my timer, to start on -1 seconds, and then start the splits when the fade out of the cutscene skip happens. We start our journey in the Shrine of Resurrection. While you skip the cutscene, you can already hold up left and B to sprint to the pedestal as fast as possible. Activate the pedestal to obtain the Sheikah Slate, and mash B while you make it through the menus and text. After about 35 seconds you will gain control of Link again. Just before that happens, already start mashing the R3 button, pressing down your right stick. This will open the scope feature of the Sheikah Slate. The first activation of this plays a little cutscene, which we need to get out of the way for our first major trick. We are gonna be clipping out of this very first room using the previously activated scope feature of the Sheikah Slate. This is called Shrine of Resurrection Clip. This is useful for multiple reasons. First of all, it skips the very long initial cutscene where the game shows you the overworld of Hyrule. The additional use is actually related to this. This first cutscene also starts the time and weather cycle in the game. So performing this clip will log the in-game clock on 5:15 AM for the rest of the game, and the weather will always be sunny. So this means no nasty rain to worry about when climbing up things and no annoying style goblins spawning at night. To perform the Shrine of Resurrection clip, run towards this wall and then jump up so Link starts running up the slope. Make Link run straight into this corner and keep holding this direction. It's time again to focus on the field of view lines and the player icon on the minimap in the right corner to set up the angle for the clip to work. In the setup I like the most, you want the left of the two field of view lines to be just on the left of this thicker blue cross on the grid, and the player icon to point just to the right of this thicker blue cross on the grid. Once you set this angle, using your camera and Link's position carefully, mash R3, the right stick button again, until Link clips. If Link goes into scope mode but doesn't clip, just redo the setup. Now that we are out of bounds, make your way to this part of the wall on the left and jump on it. Press X twice to perform 2 climb jumps and then whistle sprint up the wall until you have full stamina again. Now perform 3 climb jumps and Link should pull himself up to this area. From here we need to get back in bounds. Whistle sprint up to this black spot on the floor and crouch. Move up as high as possible and then press B for Link to cancel his crouch and sprint back in bounds. If this does not work, make sure you are precisely on this black spot on the floor. If you clip, you have done it and you have successfully escaped the Shrine of Resurrection. Make sure to practice this a little more before we proceed. Now that we are back in bounds, we need to move fast, cause the temperatures here are low. Sprint and whistle sprint back and forth over this mountain until you make it to this bokoblin camp. We visit this bokoblin camp to get our shield for the majority of the run, the potlet. Make sure to be fast here, cause the bokoblins like to steal it from you. Furthermore, this area holds a bunch of very helpful backup food that you should definitely pick up when you start doing runs, since from here on out we will be traveling through a bunch of very cold areas. I recommend to pick up these 6 chilies and these 3 mushrooms, since they are pretty much along your way anyway and don't lose you much time. If you do play flawless however, food will not be needed on your way. After picking up the shield and potential backup food, make your way towards this part of the wall and run against it until Link holds onto it. 1 climb jump should be enough for Link to pull himself over the wall. Make your way towards this slope here and shield serve away. Make sure to jump over this big stone section to preserve your speed, and end your shield serve with B as you come up to the woodcutter's X. Pick up the X and proceed in this direction. Zelda will stop you here to tell you about the Sheikah Slate. Just mash B to close the dialogue as fast as possible. From here, run up the hill and use shield jumps to skip walking over these snow slopes, which slow down Link drastically. On the third slope, I transition into a shield serve, keeping in mind that once I make my way to this wall, Link needs to have full stamina. Jumping onto the wall and 3 climb jumps will allow you to reach the top of the wall and our second Bokoblin camp. Whistle sprint towards the wooden chest and open it, obtaining 5 arrows. The Bokoblins will have noticed you at this point. This is where a random factor comes into play. We want to hit this Bokoblin with the bow 2 times in quick succession with our X to make him drop his bow. Sometimes the Bokoblins will either hit or shoot you during this process. If this happens and you don't have food, you will die. If you have backup food, eat it here as fast as possible, as the cold might take out the last health you have. I personally move the camera to a bird's eye view as Link opens the chest to better gauge Link's very huge X swinging distance. Once you hit the Bokoblin twice and he has dropped his weapon, press jump and A at the same time to pick up the bow as it is still mid-air. Now that the bow is obtained, start a shield serve aiming on this small snow-covered spot here. You want to really land precisely on the spot, as landing on the stone will not give you the speed you want. Once you pick up the tempo, jump to skip the first slope here, and then again before the slope close to the wall. If you have a full heart at this point before the wall, you don't have to eat anything. If you have only half a heart, eat now to replenish your health. An easy way to make it up this wall is to jump onto it and then perform 3 climb jumps. After that, transition into whistle sprinting to make it up the slope and hence the rest of the wall. From here, just sprint and whistle sprint in the cleanest line possible until you reach the Stasis Shrine. Since we skipped activating the tower in this route, we need to clip into the shrine. I teach you how to perform this shrine clip in part 2 of this tutorial series, so make sure to watch this now if you don't know how to clip in here yet. Set your skew on this part of the wall, line up Link as described in part 2, and then perform the clip. Once you clipped, re-equip your shield as you will need it in the shrine. I'm now gonna teach you the faster way to get to the elevator as promised in part 2. Crouch under the elevator and face it straight. Pressing B and then A in quick succession will activate the elevator from here. I basically roll my thumb from B to A to make this happen. As soon as you enter the Stasis Shrine, the cycle in it starts. So to complete the fastest cycle, skip the cutscene with X and start holding up left to run to the pedestal as fast as possible. Press A to activate it and mash B to skip through the text as you obtain the Stasis module. When the dialogue ends, use the Stasis module on the gear on the left. You can cancel the animation of Link putting down the Sheikah Slate by pressing ZL. This only saves around a quarter of a second though and is not necessarily mandatory. Once you made it a little more than half past the bridge, use Stasis on the gear again to unfreeze it. This will reduce the module's cooldown. As soon as you made it over the gap, focus your attention on the rolling boulder in the distance and stasis it as soon as possible. If you miss freezing this boulder, you will lose a little bit of time, but it's not as big of a deal, as you can just wait for the boulder to pass instead. Behind the spawn of the boulders, you can access a chest with an extra shield. This might be useful to pick up for your first runs if you really need the extra durability. Now that you made it past the rolling boulders, sprint and whistle sprint towards the stationary boulder blocking your way. You can skip this boulder by doing a risky jump here that saves around 4 seconds, but keep in mind your health will most likely be low when you approach it. So if you miss this, you will start at the beginning of the shrine, losing a ton of time since you will get a game over screen. If you wanna play it safe, just stasis the boulder, hit it once with your X and then unstasis it so it flies off and the path is clear. The jump to skip the boulder is done by running up to it in this angle, and just before the path ends you need to jump and then space out a mid-air shield jump just so that Link lands in a spot where he pulls himself up after landing. If you are too low, you will fall, and sometimes even the skew that Link still has from clipping into the shrine can mess you up. It's recommended to unequip and re-equip your shield mid-air like described in chapter 2 of the tutorial to save up on durability here. As you make it past this last obstacle, make your way up to the monk and press A to activate his dialogue. Then skip his first text cutscene as soon as possible. The first segment ends as soon as the pop-up for the spirit orb happens here. This is where you could split on your timer. We just covered a lot of different topics to complete the first out of usually 8 segments, so make sure to watch this multiple times and practice along. This segment is one of the longer ones, but arguably one of the easier ones as well. Don't get bullied by missed clip attempts or annoying bokoblins. With enough practice you will be able to master the segment soon and might not even need to pick up food in the future. In the next video, we will look at segment number 2, Cryonis, where we will travel from the Stasis Shrine to the Cryonis Shrine using our first bullet time bounce to then complete the shrine. If you have any questions, make sure to ask in the comments or the Breath of the Wild speedrun server, or come by my stream, where I'm actively doing full runs of the game. You'll find all links you need in the description. But for now, have fun with the practice and thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next chapter.